Welcome into the Landon Tengwall Show in episode 3 of Penn State Head Coach Profiles. And happy Halloween, ladies and gentlemen. Be safe tonight. Enjoy some candy. Feel like I'm on Scooby-Doo getting unmasked there. Welcome in. Today, we are looking at Duke head coach Manny Diaz today. Having been on the team with Manny Diaz when he was the defensive coordinator here, I think I have a unique perspective, and I'll be able to share that with you guys today. And that is another reason that you should hit the subscribe button if you are enjoying all the content you cannot get anywhere else. Most importantly, it helps out the channel and keeps you guys up to date on all things Penn State football. Today's video is brought to you by West Shore Home. West Shore Home is a home remodeling company. Their owner, BJ Werzen, has been a huge part of Penn State athletics, obviously West Shore Home Field at Beaver Stadium, and a big piece of Penn State NIL. So link to their website will be down below. All right. Manny Diaz is a man that needs no introduction to the Penn State fan base. He was the defensive coordinator in 2022 and 2023 for the Nittany Lions. And if he came back to be the head coach, I think he would almost certainly run the defense. And I think that'd be a good thing. I think it's fair to say that Manny Diaz is the best defensive coordinator in Penn State football history. And statistically, the numbers back that up. So in both of Diaz's years as the defensive coordinator for Penn State finished top 12 in the FBS in points allowed per game, yards allowed per game, sacks per game, and takeaways per game. And in year 2 of his defense in 2023, he was top 8 in all of those. First in sacks, by the way. We were wreaking havoc on those opposing quarterbacks. And that's something that Penn State is honestly really struggling to do at the moment. But like I said, his defense just creates havoc. In 2022, Manny Diaz's defense averaged 20.8 havoc plays. Now, a havoc play is a turnover, a sack, a TFL, or a pass breakup. 20.8 is the highest in Penn State program history. It's a long history there, and 4th highest in the FBS since 2009. So statistically, the defense is straight up lights out when Manny Diaz is running that thing. But we all know he's an elite defensive coordinator. We're not talking about him for DC. We're talking about him for head coach. So how does he fit? Obviously, Manny came from Miami. He was fired there as the head coach to come be the defensive coordinator here at Penn State. It's kind of a messy breakup where they brought in Mario Cristobal from Oregon and sent Manny Diaz packing. So he came to Happy Valley to kind of revive his career. After that, went really successful, so he went on down to Duke, took the head coaching job there, went 9-4 last year, and then currently sits at 4-3. So it's not like he's finding groundbreaking success right now at Duke, but let's talk about why I think he would be a good candidate still, especially if Penn State were to miss on some of those home run hires that we're looking at, whether that be Urban Meyer, Brian Hartline, Drinkowitz, any of those. If we miss out on those, I think Manny Diaz is the ultimate safety net candidate for Penn State, and here's why. So talking about my time being on the team when Manny Diaz was there, he was the greatest coach I've ever been around. I've said that for my past 4 or 5 years. I've told everybody that. It didn't matter, offensive players, defensive players. I've talked to teammates, and even when we're on the team, we'd all say it. We're like, Manny Diaz, like, he's a dude. Like, he knows how to get the most out of you, and his speeches, one of the greatest speakers I've honestly ever heard. And, you know, he would do, from time to time, he would do the pregame speeches in the locker room, and boy, let me tell you, he would get us fired up. I was jealous of the defense sometimes because he would obviously always give speeches to them, and they would just get going. And it's not a slight against Franklin, but Franklin was never a big speech guy. He always says, I'm not big on speeches. And I do think it's kind of important for a head coach to be able to do that, for all their guys to be able to get them and get that fire out of his players. And, you know, it takes real talent to be able to motivate every single person in a building that has whatever, 200, 250 people in it, from players, staff, and everybody in between. So I'll tell you, like, we'd be in team meetings and he'd be talking. It'd be like Manny would get up and then Yurcich would get up and Manny would be talking to the defense in the team meeting, giving them, like, you know, going through everything and kind of giving a speech while he's doing it. And it was nothing ever felt forced with Manny. Like, it was just such a great job of being that motivator. But us offensive players, he'd be talking on like the left side of the room to the defense, and we're like leaning in, like, holy crap. Like, I was just like, truly, like, I'm not trying to, jazz him up too much, but like, he was mesmerizing in terms of just being a fantastic coach and how he talked to his players. And you could see how much the defensive players truly loved him. I mean, every single turnover, they're going over, they're celebrating with him, they're handing him the football. And that's because of the type of guy he is. He cultivated a relationship with his guys on the roster. Now, Diaz, as a player, he was never really a true football player, but he would come out to practice. He would have cleats on. I remember he'd always be going through drills. And you see like Dan Connor do that now, and it's like, hell yeah, you love that. And Dan Connor looks like he's going to like knock over the bag. But when a coach that hasn't really played is doing that, and he's going through drills, and you see Manny Diaz showing you wrapping up, and he's got the cleats on, he's cutting up the grass. It's like, yeah, that's a dude I want to freaking play for. I want to get out there for that guy. And most importantly, got the results from the players on the field, but they just truly loved him. Like, I lived with Curtis Jacobs and Chop Robinson in 2023, and like, I'll tell you, they'd say like, we'll die for Manny. Like, that's how it felt. Like, that's how much love the players had for Manny on defense, and I think he would get that from everybody on the team if he was the head coach. A big piece of that too, though, is to kind of take you inside his relationship with players. A big piece of it was his understanding of how to balance relationships with his guys. So, I mean, some coaches come in and they kind of want to be friends with their players, and that doesn't really work. You have to understand, and Manny understood, what it takes to get your players to love you and play for you. You have to connect with them, but you got to ask for the most out of them, and you got to make sure to never baby them. And that's all things that Manny Diaz did, and just had constant communication with them. And that's part of the reason why they had so much respect for him. He wasn't looking to be their friend. He was looking to go in there, win, and get his guys better every single day. And that's why they loved him so much, and that relationship was able to be cultivated. Like, Diaz ran a very complex defense, and we've heard that term recently, complex defenses, and it's not going so well for Penn State right now. But I like I said, I live with a bunch of the defensive players, and they would talk about it. We'd be sitting there watching film, and like, we'll go home and we would hook up our iPads into the TV, and like, it would be a huge group of us. A couple offensive linemen like Olu Fashanu would come over, and we'd watch film with Chop Robinson, Curtis Jacobs, and the gang, and we'd always talk over things, and we'd get to understand, okay, like, what are you guys trying to do? And they'd always the vibe I always got was, yeah, if something wasn't working, we'd talk to Manny. There was always tons of communication, and Manny would fix it if there was an issue, if his guys weren't understanding something. And a lot of times coaches don't do that because they can be stubborn and just kind of in their ways, and it's, hey, just learn it, figure it out. But that's another reason why I loved Manny so much. Just watching him from the opposite side, just did such a great job understanding what his players needed from him as a defensive coordinator. Now, another piece of this, Diaz could help retain some Penn State players that Penn State wants to keep around. I think there's going to be a massive turnover, but if Diaz was the head coach, he could help mitigate some of that. So these are the players that played under Diaz, or he heavily recruited them, and as soon as he got here, that is kind of when he left. So Tony Rojas, King Mack, Max Granville is a name that I think that would be great to keep around. We know what type of year he was going to have before he got injured. Dejon Lane, Xavier Gilliam, Malachi Williams, Elliott Washington, Adavian Collins, and Zion Tracy. So very influential in all those guys. There's definitely a couple guys in that list that I want to keep around. And then I think there's some of those guys on that list that, because they know what it was like under Manny and they feel everything I'm telling you guys right now, like I said, I'm telling you, everybody felt that way if you played under Manny. You can influence other guys. So Tony Rojas can go to Amari Campbell and say, listen, this is what it was like. Tony Rojas and Amari Campbell are best friends. You're going to succeed under Manny Diaz because he's going to put you in situations to win. Rojas and those guys, they can go to someone like Chaz Coleman and say, hey, look what he was able to do. Look what Manny Diaz did with Chop Robinson and Adisa Isaac. Defensive ends found so much success because his blitz packages are fantastic, and you're going to find a lot of one-on-ones with offensive tackles and different ways to scheme you to find a way to win. So I think that's all great, and there's just kind of a familiarity with Manny Diaz, and that's, once again, why I call him the best safety net candidate, because he understands what it takes at Penn State, what the culture is like. We all know we are a unique bunch, we'll call it that. That you gotta be a certain type of person to be able to win here and thrive as a head coach, and I think Manny Diaz is that. Now, some questions that I've heard surrounding Diaz that I think we should talk about. Number one, can he recruit at an elite level? That's something I've seen a lot of. And I already told you how much players love him and the connection he can make, so I don't have a question really about that necessarily. But looking at his classes while he's been a head coach, I think he could recruit just as well or better than James Franklin. And I know some people are going to say, whoa, that's crazy. How could he do that? Because Franklin has this title of elite recruiter. But you start to look at the numbers. In all of the 2020s, James Franklin averaged the 14th best class in America at Miami. Diaz had the 16th best class and then the 11th best class there. And then in year one at Duke, Manny Diaz brought in the 31st best class in the nation, which is the highest rated recruiting class in Duke football history. So 31st isn't very good for Penn State, but you're getting that done at Duke. That's pretty big time. So I've seen many people say he can't recruit at a high level. I'm not so sure about that. I think with the resources at Penn State, and if he was, if he was wearing that Nittany Lion logo, it becomes a lot easier. And then you mix in Pat Kraft and everybody saying, hey, you get full support, full alignment. I think Manny Diaz could be a borderline elite recruiter here at Penn State. Now, the other big question about Manny Diaz, who would he bring in to be the offensive coordinator? Because Manny Diaz is going to be the head coach and basically the head coach of the defense. If he came here, whoever he brings as the OC is going to be the full-on head coach of the offense, if you will. So some potential names to look at. Ohio State's offensive wide receiver, passing game coordinator, QB coach, Billy Fessler. We've talked about him a couple times in the Ohio State realm. He is one young, hot name right now, and obviously played quarterback at Penn State. Never really actually got on the field necessarily, but he was here in his time, then worked his way up as a GA at a couple different places. Like I said, he is a big-time name at the moment. Another name that would be a reunion, Joe Moorhead, who is the head coach at Akron right now, and they are struggling a little bit. He has not found a ton of success as a head coach, so maybe he wants to come back, be an offensive coordinator, and kind of revive himself a little bit. And here's one thing that I will share with you guys from talking to my sources. Yes, Penn State has obviously been in contact with Manny Diaz. That is not a secret. They've talked to a lot of different coaches. But what I got back from my sources was that Pat Kraft and company, I got quote unquote very impressed with Manny Diaz's plan for the offense and kind of who the offensive coordinator would be of what he told them. So I think that is great news. So, I mean, wouldn't Manny Diaz be the home run hire? No. But I think if you miss out on the Brahms, on the Drinkowitzes, even if you want the Heartlines, and you don't land those, and you start looking around, and it's mid-November, and you're saying, we don't have a good idea of who we're still going to get, I start to pick up the phone and say, hey, Manny, you ready to start to really talk about this thing? Because I think, once again, he is the ultimate safety net candidate that can be a glue guy at head coach for Penn State. All right, that wraps it up for today. I appreciate you guys tuning in. We have live call-in show tomorrow, 9 a.m. pregame show. So make sure you guys are in there. We're going to have a great time. And obviously, postgame show following the end of Penn State and Ohio State. Hoping for a good one from the blue and white tomorrow. Find a way, keep that thing close, and just stay in it until the very end. But I appreciate you guys. Next week, we will have 2 episodes of Penn State head coach profiles coming back at you guys. So love doing this. Enjoy it. So appreciate you guys supporting. Like, comment, subscribe. Peace.